G'day everyone, welcome to another video from Sweeney's Creek Farm. This is the second part of the onion crop video. You may recall a video a number of months ago where Julianne was out of action due to an injury, and so I had to get my black thumbs out and plant some onions, and we were unsure exactly how it was going to go, but turns out we've ended up with an absolute bumper crop of onions, and it's now time to harvest. Harvesting onions normally takes place between 25 and 34 weeks. We're currently at 36 weeks, which is a little bit later than normal, but we haven't really had a normal growing season here this year in central Victoria. We've had a lot of rain, we've had a very cold and wet spring, a very late start to summer, so these guys have been a little bit slow getting ready to harvest point, but we're at that point now, and we have a large crop of onions ready to come out of the ground. As you can see in the garden bed, we know they're ready for harvesting because the top part of the plant has started to fall over. Once they sort of wilt and fall over like that, that's a sign that the bulb underneath the actual onion is ready to go. We're going to be leaving a few of them in here because they have gone to seed. So we're going to let those continue to finish that cycle. We'll be able to harvest some seeds for next season as well. Over on the left over here, we have some spring onions. They've all gone to seed. They've got big flower pods on top of them at the moment. We're going to leave them there for the moment because our bees absolutely love them, and I can see a number of bees working away there collecting pollen and moving through the flowers. That's going to help whatever we plant in the garden beds moving forward. So we're just going to leave those there as a bee attractant and as a resource here for the garden beds. But the process now is to just go through and work out which ones we're going to leave, so that we can continue to harvest some seeds, and which ones we're going to take out, put down in the garage for the drying process, ready for us to use them. Speaking of the drying or the curing process, with our love of reuse and recycle, we have a number of these old bread trays. So local bakeries use these to deliver loaves of bread to supermarkets. We've been able to get hold of a few of these for free. We're going to collect up the onions, stack them up in here, and then they'll sit in a nice cool dry place and go through the curing process. After a few weeks they'll be ready for use. So what happens there is they'll all dry out, the leaves on top will all cut them off, and we end up with the onion bulb ready for use. With that in mind, time to start picking some onions. We were pretty confident we were going to get a good crop of onions out of here. The soil that was in here was very good quality. We put a lot of amendments into it and pumped a lot of organic material into them to give them a good boost. We're actually a little bit shocked just how big these onions have turned up, and just to prove a point, I'll get one out here. And I've got a fairly big pair of mitts, and that's a big onion. You certainly don't see them that size in a supermarket, and you know, even when they cure, they're going to shrink a little bit, but that's going to be one heck of an onion, and there are multiples of this size all through the garden bed. So they've obviously really enjoyed where they've been growing, had a lot of nutritional value in the soil, and have done really, really well. The process is now just dig them up out of the soil, get as much of the soil out, get them nice as clean as we can, and then keeping that intact, just placing it on the tray, and then we'll just stack the rest of them up in rows and work our way down the tray. That'll give it a nice drying spot. But there are definitely some good sized onions, and they're coming out of the ground really clean too, which is good to see. That's about the size of a softball. That's a big size onion. You know your onions are growing correctly when they're sitting above the soil. So the root system definitely down in the soil, but the rest of the onion above the soil, and that way they grow correctly, and the actual flesh that we use doesn't rot. This is going to be a very big crop of onions. One thing to keep in mind too is you can actually harvest the onions earlier. You can get them as a much smaller bulb, and then they're perfect for pickling. I was kind of intending to pickle some onions, but we never sort of got to that point, and we've actually let them grow out now to a point where they need to be cured, and they'll become a great part of our cooking, and also the next batch of tomato relish which we'll be making. For those people interested in how I make tomato relish, link in here somewhere or down below to the tomato relish making video, which has been our most popular video, which has been really exciting to see.
Insane.
Yeah.
Look at the size of it. It's so heavy.
So here's an example of one that didn't get the bulb out of the ground. It was sort of sitting too low down in the wet soil, and as you can see, they go really mushy and just get they rot basically. So no good this time. Yeah, there's a nice perfect drying for cooking size. We've just harvested one of the 4 garden beds that we'll be doing today with onions, and we've filled up 2 trays already. Yeah, it's going to be a huge crop. I think I need a bigger tray. We have a few different varieties of onions in this bed. We've got the standard brown onions, we've got some red onions, also known as a Spanish onion. We've also got some white odorless, and the white odorless are really good for salads. And they're basically picked and ready to cut up and put into a salad. They're very nice. But also got some very big onions here.
So here's the red onions. These are the white ones here. And then you have the white.
Well, you might be wondering why I'm sitting here in the garden beds with a large black bag here. Most people on the channel would probably be aware, on the weekends I help a local snake catcher as a backup snake relocator. And as I was harvesting the onions, the phone went off, and a lady had what she thought was a rather large brown snake in her backyard. So I've headed out and caught the offending reptile. And I thought I'd just bring him out and show you, because it turned out to not be a snake, but one of my absolute favourite animals, and channeling one of my all-time idols, Steve Irwin. Wish you were here, Steve. This one's a little ripper. Let's have a look. So this is a common lizard that's found in Australian backyards. This is an Australian eastern blue-tongued skink. Scientific name is Tiliqua syncoides. Got it right. They're a beautiful little lizard. As you can see, the lady actually didn't see the legs, and she only saw that part of it. It's quite a common mistake to mistake these guys for eastern browns and other snakes. So it certainly wasn't an unexpected error, and we always treat it as a snake call out as well. These guys love living in backyards. They love feeding on snails and slugs, so they're actually a really good critter to have in your backyard. They have an interesting threat display. I don't know if I can get him to do it. I call it the Gene Simmons lizard. They open up their mouth and stick their big blue tongue out, just as trying to make it look very scary. He was doing it earlier, but now he's actually become used to me handling. They're really cool lizards out in the wild. You know, you can pick them up and they're very easily to handle, and then put back into the ecosystem. So one thing that you will see on a lizard you won't see on a snake is that ear hole. So if you do see the head and you happen to see there's an ear hole on the side, if you happen to be that close, then you do know it's a lizard and not a snake. Crack a little fella, and he's now going to live with us. An interesting thing here too, being a skink, they can shed their tail. This guy's actually shed his tail in the past, and he's in the process of regrowing it, which is why it looks a bit stumpy and malformed, but over the next few years that'll lengthen out a bit and become a little bit more normal. Yeah, he's probably about 10 or 12 years. So this guy is going to be released out into the back of the property here. We've got some natural habitat there. It is an Australian native animal. It is a protected animal. It is illegal to take them out of the wild and keep them. So particularly with my snake relocator license, I'm able to move them around and put them back into habitat, but I'm not allowed to keep them. But we're certainly going to be setting up a little bit of a lizard friendly habitat area down the back there at some stage, and hopefully encourage these guys to be part of our ecosystem here. But for now, you're going to live on Sweeney's Creek Farm down the back. What do you reckon? Does that sound good? Hey, does that sound good? Yeah, all good. Back to the onions, which is the purpose why we're out here today. We've harvested all of the brown onions. You can see we've ended up with 5 trays. They're very, very full and very heavy. We're going to do a weigh-in later on, and we'll put the total weight that we came up with in the description down below. We have some red onions at the back and some white onions over there as well. And we have left a couple of onions in the garden bed to go to seed, so we can actually collect the seeds. As we said before, bees are loving these spring onions here, so we're leaving those in to encourage those pollinators in. And looking around the 5 trays, turns out the thumbs aren't as black as what we thought. Very happy with how they've turned out, and it's a good crop of onions, and particularly for our first go growing onions. So looking forward to repeating that next season as well. So all we need to do now is just wait for these guys to dry and cure, and then we'll be able to store them in the cupboard ready for use, and then we'll see how many other uses we can find for them. I can see some, definitely as I mentioned before, some tomato relish in the future, and possibly some French onion soup, and a few other things that we might have a go at. Thanks for being here, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit that thumbs up and give us some support for the video. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button and joining the family. Hope you're enjoying the content, and we certainly have a lot more videos coming up as we're heading into our summer and growing period, and looking forward to getting some content out for all of you guys. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.